Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Tara Lorimer. I am the Vice President of VRNation. I am also the owner and founder of Luxury Getaways up in the Pacific Northwest. I am your host this morning, and I am here to introduce our speaker, the wonderful Corinne Oakey. Corinne is the VP of Community and Engagement at Breezeway. I get to call her my friend, and we both have a love affair for fashion and shoes.
Well,
On
that's
behalf of VRNation, welcome everyone. VRNation is a national association of short-term rental managers focusing on education, advocacy, and elevating the industry. Good morning. There's just a few more people waiting to arrive. So while we are in a 15-second holding pattern, why don't a few of you guys tell us where you're joining from?
I feel a little left out because it's not morning for me, Tara. It is 1 o'clock.
It's 10
So
o'clock here.
I'm thinking, and actually, I say I'm a little sad, but really, that means I'm closer to the end of my day than the beginning. So I'll take
Lucky.
it. I'm in Ohio.
Mine is just starting. I'm up in Bellingham, Washington. So, all right. Are we about ready to get started here?
I'm ready when you are.
Okay. The floor is yours, Corinne. Take it away.
All right. Okay. Well, this is the moment when I pray that my dog sleeps for the next hour so that we have no interruptions. But I appreciate so much the opportunity to be here and chat with all of you today. I am, as Tara said, I oversee our events and community here at Breezeway. I have been in the industry since 2008. I worked for the first 7 years of my career at Flipkey, and then I have been with Breezeway now just over 8 years, which is kind of crazy to say that it's been 8 years. So what we're going to talk about today are strategies to wow owners and elevate your services. And I think, this is such a big piece of operating. And so really want to really just sort of walk through that. I already told you who I am. If you aren't familiar with Breezeway, I'll just share a little bit of that, which will help you understand where we're coming from in some of this discussion today. And so Breezeway is a platform for powering hospitality and hospitality operations. So when we launched the product in 2017, it was an operations focus. And as the platform has evolved, we've continued to add on additional functionality. So you're able to run your cleanings, your inspection, your maintenance, all of those tasks through Breezeway. We have automated scheduling that makes it really easy to send those jobs out. And then also for your team to complete those jobs in the field through our mobile apps. But recently we have started to focus on some owner retention functionality, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And the way that we look at owner retention isn't like this whole new piece of it, but it's about taking the work that you're doing in operations and being able to share that with the homeowners and to take those appropriate steps. We also have a lot of great products that service the guest satisfaction piece. So we have a guide product, a messaging product, an after hours call handling product called Assist, and many, many more different pieces of functionality that sort of apply to the responsibilities that you guys as operators have. We have a ton of integrations. We work with a lot of different clients, but I think one of the things that I love about what we do and the way that we get to interact with property managers is the fact that this has always been such a difficult part of the business that the tool that we have really allows them to focus on other parts of the business. And a client actually said this to me at a conference a few years ago, that by having a platform that does what they need to do, they get to focus on the fun stuff that allows their guests to have a really great experience and to come back year after year and stay with them. So we are happy, and you'll see at the end of the slide, to talk to you more in depth about what we do and how we can help your business. But for now, I'm going to turn off my my Breezeway hat, and we're going to start talking about how to attract and retain those homeowners. So, I think a lot of this is you're going to look at this and say, well, yeah, this makes sense, right? But I think as as hospitality providers, as hospitality professionals, you guys are regularly pulled in so many different directions that sometimes it can be tough to think and get back to the basics a little bit. So we want to talk about building trust and credibility, letting those homeowners who may not be in rental programs today know about your services before they consider needing them. We want to talk about proactive and personalized communication and how that can differentiate you from other operators in your markets. And how you can differentiate the work that you're doing when you have those conversations, right? How you can show them that these are the things that we do that make us special. And part of that goes back to that localized personal experience that you have as folks who live, breathe, work, and build a community within those markets that you operate in. And then we'll end on the importance of investing in professional services, because we all know that, we're managing properties, we're welcoming guests, we're dealing with our teams. But the reality is that somebody else has probably been in your shoes and had those experiences. And so those connections that you can make and the way that you can leverage those professional relationships are paramount. So let's get started with building trust and credibility. I think, this is one of those things that as we grow, as businesses grow, it's like, well, everyone knows who we are, right? But I think that we have to continue to remember that there's always new homeowners who are coming in to the fold. And so it's really important to make sure that you are involved in your community, whether that means things like sponsoring the Little League team or being involved in different community initiatives. It's really important that you're out there, that you are participating in your destination Facebook groups, right? That's a big place where people are coming in and saying, hey, I'm purchasing this home and I'm thinking about renting it. But what can who do I need to be with? Where do I need to, I got sidetracked by the chat here. Erin, I'm glad that it was so impactful on your marriage, just made me laugh. And then I lost my train of thought. I'm
laughing at the same thing.
I was like, that's amazing. I'd love to hear more about that at some point. But anyway, so engaging in those Facebook groups, new owners are always coming into the scene. People are always thinking about buying in your markets. How do we know that they are going to know who you are? That's going to be really important. And I think, and you'll see it not today, but one of the things that I really believe is that letting your happy clients, whether those are homeowners or guests, speak for you is incredibly important, right? There's always people who are talking to someone else who's looking to start renting, and letting those happy homeowners be those powerful testimonials for you is really, really important. Speaking of buying properties, right? Relationships with realtors, with HOAs, with local businesses that are going to have those conversations cannot be overlooked, because those folks are going to be a big source of, if not new homeowners, the opportunity to win homeowners, right? Because again, with all of these things, it's about, how do you make the introduction? How do they know who you are? How do they know that you're a credible, professional, reliable company? And then doing all of the other things that we've talked about, like personalizing your service, differentiating your offerings. That's your chance to win those folks. So when we start to talk about that proactive, personalized communication, I think it happens a lot, right? Not just in our industry, where it's like, well, this is what we do and this is our process. And it's like, well, that doesn't work for me, right? That's not going to meet the needs of what I have, or what I'm looking for with this home. And I think this is where that idea of owner personas is really important. And so if you haven't already done this in your business, I can't encourage you enough to think about the different types of homeowners that you have and how you engage with them. You've got your investment homeowners, you've got your familial homeowners, right? This is my grandparents' house, then it was my parents, and now it's mine. And we've been coming here since I was a little kid, right? They have different goals and needs, and they're going to think about how they manage their home and how you manage their home differently than the investor who's strictly there looking more for, what's my ADR, what's my occupancy, all of that good stuff. And so when you think about having those owner personas and how you engage with them, that's incredibly important. Not just, and I think this is really key, this is not just important to get new homeowners, but it will make it will make your process of getting those new homeowners incredibly more effective. And it will also ensure that once you have them, you're continuing to have conversations with them that are going to resonate, right? If you're going in and saying, we need to change this comforter or this quilt, and they're saying, but that's my grandmother's quilt, right? Well, that's not going to be the best case. So we need to have other information to back us up to get those changes made. And a lot of those, again, outside of having those owner personas, is about setting the expectations and setting them not 2 years in, not 2 months in, right? Changes are going to happen in your business. You're going to need to communicate those clearly to your existing homeowners, but it's setting those expectations from the start. I have heard so frequently from people that, after the dreaded COVID, right, that the expectations of your homeowners has been like super tumultuous, right? Everybody has these great ideas of what bookings are going to look like and what revenue is going to look like. And we know that things are sort of starting to settle now. And so we have to reset those expectations. But if we're very clear, if when we brought homeowners in during those times, hey, this is like not normal, right? This is a one-off and let's ride it while we can. But I want to set you up for what you can expect as the norm. And certainly we don't know what those are at every moment in time. But if we can use all of the data and the information and the experience that you have to align those, that's really important. So when we're thinking about income potentials, what are your policies? Like, what are your responsibilities versus theirs? That can be really impactful down the line to avoid having those misunderstandings. And a lot of it, right, is what you can actually, a lot of those misunderstandings happen because people just think, oh, you just want me to replace that bed, or oh, you want to charge me something, right? And that's really not it. So when we think about how we communicate with our homeowners, I think it's really important to think about the fact that we want to drive confidence, but we have to have some information to support that. So whether that's specific data, whether it's use cases, whether it's reviews, I mentioned that prior to joining Breezeway, I was with Flipkey for a long time, and sort of an inadvertent benefit to a lot of our clients. And I may be dating myself by talking about Flipkey because some newcomers might not exactly even remember that, but by having people comment about particular items or areas in the home in those reviews, that was a really powerful way for property managers to get their homeowners to make improvements. And so whether you're looking at data around ADR, revenue, booking occupancy, or whether you're looking about improvements to a property, it's going to be really important to have the information to share with them so that they feel confident that these are actually things that need to be done. I also want to talk a little bit about differentiating your offering. I think that the work of a property manager is heroic in many, many ways. I used to joke when I did presentations a long time ago that property managers had to be everything but a chicken whisperer, right? You're responsible for how their kids act. You're responsible for the weather, if the restaurants they want to go to are open and they can get in. Not to mention, you're responsible for making sure that the property is cleaned and guest ready and everything is functioning the way that it should. And if there's an issue, your team is there right away, right? Like the list goes on and on and on and on. And that's just for the guest, right? And so I think at the end of the day, people are often so focused on what is that guest experience going to be like that sometimes we forget about the owner, or they take a little bit of a backseat in some forms. And so I think that we need to make sure at all points, whether it's how you present your offering to a new potential owner or how you continue to inform your existing owners, it's important to showcase the value that you drive for them. One of the things I remember when we were first starting Breezeway, and we were talking to a property manager, and she was sitting with her maintenance, her head of maintenance, and he was like, well, we've been going into this house every week for X, Y, or Z months to like make sure there's not a leak because the owner was concerned about it. And she looked at him and said, really? We're not charging them for any of those visits. And where is it being documented? Oh, it's not. We just pop in when we're by and like make sure that it's, everything's good. Those are like those small touches where, especially if there's not a charge to the homeowner, you should be shouting that from the rooftop. Now, again, I think going back to that persona, you have to understand, like, does this matter to them? Do they care about that? But if you think about, I'm sure if I gave all of you guys a couple of minutes to think about an interaction that you've had with a homeowner, how often are you doing things that you are not telling them about? And when you do those things, hopefully many of you are using Breezeway, and so you have it tracked and you have a record of it, but how often is it actually being recorded? And could you share that with them if you needed to? So in that scenario where that I shared, where they were going in and checking on the roof, nothing was being documented. How much you want to bet when, and if there ever was a leak in that property, that homeowner says, well, it's your fault. You haven't been checking on it. I asked you to check on it. You don't have anything to document that you were there. And so I think whether this is a scenario like that leaky roof, whether this is your preventative maintenance, whether these are the safety inspections and the work that you're doing to make sure that every guest that enters that home is safe and is going to have a great stay, whether it's what you do to get a property ready for the guest that's going to come in, make sure that they're understanding the full scope, because they're going to hear you tell them that at the very beginning. But when push comes to shove, they're going to, that's not going to be what they're thinking about, right? Or when you do have to charge them for something because you had to go out and meet a delivery person, or you had to do, something in the property and there is a charge, that starts to be like, well, but like, come on, you could just handle it for me, right? But wait, you've been doing all of those other things and they don't know about it. And so, like I said, as you guys being heroes, showcase what you're doing. I think we did a stat a while ago, and we haven't actually done this for a bit, but we asked people how much of the work they were doing did their homeowners know about? And the average answer was right around 20. I would hope that has changed now, but if your answer is right around 20, you got to get some more credit for yourself, right? Because you can't be telling them every time you go into a property, right? They don't want to know that. But if you could consolidate it and share that with them in an easy way, that would be really helpful and very beneficial for everybody. I think also, this second one, I think this could be a little bit of a controversial bullet: adapt to the owner's preferences, right? You have your businesses, you run your businesses, you have processes, you have SOPs, but sometimes we have that little bit of flexibility and we can customize the work that needs to be done based on the needs of the owner. I'm not saying you're going to like change the way that you do preventative maintenance, or you're not going to do a particular part of your operational process. But if they want, they want different sheets put on when they're coming in, right? That's something that you could easily accommodate. And so thinking about how you can make those small concessions that might be really powerful to them, but aren't going to break your operational process, is really important. And I think, again, adapting to those preferences goes back to what we talked about on the last slide, which is around the idea of understanding the persona, understanding what is important to that homeowner, so that you can sort of forward thinking, think about that. And then sticking to the facts. Again, there's a lot of emotion in some of this home ownership, and people in some instances are renting their properties because they have to cover the mortgage, right? They'd love to be able to go whenever they want and use their home, and they don't want guests in there, but that's not an option for them. And so property improvements, changing things out, adding new things can be really tough. But when you have a record of the maintenance and the work that you're doing, it'll help reinforce the trust with you. An example that I would use around this, guys, is that, like, how often have you repaired a dishwasher or another appliance a few times and then sent another repair bill to the homeowner, and they've said, haven't we done this 3 times, right? Haven't we done this 4 times? This is a real life example from a manager in Florida, who I was talking with a few years back. And they said, would it not have been cheaper to have just replaced this? Guaranteed, if that manager had gone to the homeowner and said, we need to replace your dishwasher, the homeowner would have said, no, let's just fix it, right? But when you can come in and say, hey, we have tried to fix this and it hasn't worked. It's time now. We can continue to dump money into it, or we can replace it, right? That takes all of the emotion out of it. The idea that you're just looking to, fill your maintenance tech's time and we can just do it the other way. That kind of goes out the window, but you want to be the one who knows that about their property. You don't want them to tell you that you've repaired it 4 times. And guys, I've seen some of the solutions, and it can be really tough to know exactly what we did at the dishwasher at this property at any point. And so, really making sure that the work you're doing is actually associated with the element or the item that it's impacting is super important. So I wanted to talk a little bit on here about how Breezeway helps. Again, I want this to be really educational, but I think when you start to think about how you can use the tools to get some of this work done, understanding what that looks like can be really important. So, we, at Breezeway, we have our operations platform. We have templates where you assign the work. It's consistent. It's done on a regular cadence. And the user ends up going through a checklist. This is super important because it's ensuring that consistency and ensures the transparency, and it's a CYA, right? Because you've now got somebody who's gone through and said they've done all of these things. And so when you're thinking about what preventative maintenance you can be doing and how you can regularly schedule that and not miss it, that's super important. We talked about sort of adhering to some of the owner preferences when it's possible. That can be done through property specific requirements, right? Making sure that they know that you understand what's important to them. I will never forget, and I've told this story a million times, so if you've listened and heard me say this, I'm sorry, but being in a office with a property manager and the owner relations manager saying that she had to go to the house to look at the way that the pillows were organized because they continued to organize them on the couch the wrong way, like the wrong colors. That was that little thing that to the standard guest did not matter, right? The guest doesn't care if the pillows are, red, orange, blue, or blue, orange, red, right? They just care that there's pillows on the couch, but the owner cared. And so when you start to think about, let me deliver the level of experience that I promised them when we wooed them and tried to get them to come onto our property management portfolio, delivering on that is really important, because what we say, it's not all about what we say. It's about actually how we execute. And then I think, this is a big one, whether it is, it's more about asset management, right? And that is the idea that it's super important. And within our platform at Breezeway, you can actually capture the details around the makes, the models, the serial numbers. You can easily see the work that's been done on a particular item within that property. Not only is that going to ensure that you're sort of operating in the right way on behalf of the homeowner, but it also means that you're operating on the right way on behalf of you as a business. You don't have to send that maintenance tech out to get on a trip charge to get the make and model of the dishwasher so that you can make sure you've got the right people doing the work or you've got the right part. And so I think that within a platform like ours, you have the ability to execute on a lot of the things that we've talked about and the value that they have to the homeowner. But I also think, there's operational value and efficiency values to you as a business as well when you start to look at that. So if we talk about, the way that property managers operate, this is a big one. And I think that this is such a value for so many folks on the call. And that has to do with the fact that you are locally owned and operated in most instances, right? You've got deep community roots. You understand the challenges. You understand what the neighbors are saying, what the city council is saying, and you're operating with a level of responsibility and a level of trust that has the best interest, not only of your homeowners, but of your community at heart. And I think that when you do that and you can share that information and let your homeowners or your potential homeowners know about that, not only does that help them feel confident in the choice of working with you, but it will also ensure that they know you're going to be in the know about what's going on. Plus, you have a local staff, right? These are residents who love the destination. They want everybody who comes there to have a great experience. And so they're working really hard to do that. You're connected with professionals. It ensures that, you've got the plumber or the electrician or whatever vendor you may need to call, them, right? You go to church with them, you have your kids' little league team with them, you see them at local restaurants. You've got the opportunity to get that sort of first access to some of those folks. And so you have that experience, that personal connection to the area that's clearly important for them because they're investing in property there. And this last one, I think this is probably a little less for the homeowners when it, on a day-to-day basis, but man, is this powerful for you guys as operators. The ability to engage with industry associations like VRNation, the ability to learn. I saw a question in here. Does anybody have promotional material they would be willing to share, right? Like you guys get to connect and learn from one another. And the way that benefits your homeowners is because you're darn good at your jobs. Because you are not trying to create the wheel on every single scenario that comes up. You have built connections and relationships to people that allow you to have somebody to phone a friend for, right? So you don't have to figure it out and you can learn from those people. So I cannot, for everybody on here, you're already doing the right thing. You're coming to these webinars, you're learning. But man, the relationships that you can build and the knowledge sharing that can be done is so powerful. Investing in that continued education is what keeps all of you competitive. It's what you can then share with your homeowners. Also, if you're only sharing your owner statements with homeowners, start a newsletter. Highlight improvements that were made for a property that then saw a big boost in occupancy or a higher ADR, right? People want that sort of understanding of what the value is there. So if they're only getting their bill, it's going to be really hard if we go back for them to understand the level of service and the great care that you're actually taking at their homes. But we're going to conferences, we're listening on webinars, and we're saying, these are the things that are happening, not just here in our market, but globally. And so I think we want to start to think about that. Or you have an ear on regulation, like let them know, right? Make sure that they understand ways that their home can be more effectively managed, and use tech to prove your value. You don't have to do it alone. I think that's one of my favorite things about this industry is how collaborative and how many friendships have been formed from this. But there's tech out there too that will help you prove the value to your homeowners. So whether you're using tools like a key data for market data or a dynamic pricing tool or an ops and guest experience tool like Breezeway, that will allow you, going back to what we said earlier, to focus on the things that matter, to having those relationships, to building those partnerships and making sure that your team can concentrate on the things that are going to have the biggest impact. And so, speaking of tech, obviously that's what we are. And I did want to share, these are new hot off the press things. So this is the first time I'm publicly talking about these two new pieces of functionality in our platform, but it was very on brand that this would be something we could share today, because that is this idea of automating your owner reporting, right? So I just said, and it was not planned because I kind of forgot that this was my next slide, that if you can show them what you're doing and not just send them the owner statement, that can be incredibly powerful. Owner reporting is incredibly powerful. What this is it basically takes all of the tasks that you complete within Breezeway. You can set up a cadence of when and how often you want to send these, or how often you want to send these to your homeowners. And then these reports can be automatically shared with your homeowners at the appropriate time. So now, two things. One, you get to choose what's included and what's not. So it's not like we're sending everything. And two, hot tip, if you are going to do this, make sure that your team who's actually completing the tasks knows this, because what they put on the tasks is going to show on these reports if you don't set up the right default. So speak to our team. We'd be happy to walk you through this, this particular part of the product, because this is brand new. But you can have these reports go out to your homeowners on a regular basis that will say, hey, we were in your house for this long, this many times over the last X amount of days. And then if you choose to, you can also share the specific tasks that were completed when they were in there. Again, you want to know your audience. There might be some homeowners in your program that are like, yeah, they're going to ignore this. Maybe that's fine. Maybe send it to them anyway, because you know they're going to ignore it. Or there are going to be some homeowners who are calling you 1,000 times a month. Okay, that might be a little bit of an exaggeration. They're calling you frequently and they want to know what's going on. How is it? Blah, blah, blah. This is going to eliminate some of those phone calls. And then hopefully they get to the point where they can rely on receiving these reports and they stop calling, unless there's something that's super valuable for it. And then the other piece of this is, we talked about improvements to properties. We talked about, how that can be really, it can be time consuming, but also about how it's important to set the expectations when you start working with someone on how you're going to communicate, what's going to be their preferred method of communication. And owner task approval has been, again, a really great one. What this does is if you have a task that meets the level with which your company operates. So, sometimes it's 250, sometimes it's 500, whatever that limit that you have of making improvements to a property without owner approval. If it's a $250 limit and a task is $300, you can actually send that directly to the homeowner for them to approve automatically. And then it will come back in and notify your team that this task has been approved and you can take the appropriate steps. So instead of a task coming in, you realizing it needs to be done, it going to owner relations calling them saying, yes, it comes back to you. Okay, John and Sally approved this. Now I need to go back into the task, right? We're removing a ton of that hassle, that back and forth, that manual intervention, and sending that out to your homeowners so that they can approve those tasks. So super excited. I literally think one of these tasks, one of these features just launched like a week ago. So if you haven't seen this yet, it's all live in your account, and we'd love to have you guys taking advantage of it. But more so than that, right? It is, if you're not using Breezeway and you're not interested in using Breezeway, how can you still provide this type of service? Because if you're not doing it and your competitor is, that's going to set them above and help them differentiate their service. So I think that's super, super important. If they're, want to be cognizant of time, everybody's super busy. If you're interested in learning more and you heard something that spurred your interest here, you can grab this QR code. And our team would be happy to share more with you. I'm also going to do a shameless plug for our Elevate event next week. We do a virtual conference. It's Tuesday and Wednesday. And I know for folks up in the Pacific Northwest, you guys have a great VR Roadshow happening on Tuesday. But hopefully we'll be able to welcome you to Elevate on Wednesday, the 12th. But Elevate is 2 days virtual, 25-minute sessions. Day one on Tuesday, the 11th, is all about thought leadership. And we have a ton of panelists coming in to speak. And then day two is all about Breezeway. And we're going to dive deep on some of the specific pieces of functionality within the platform to help you guys get more out of what you're doing. We talked about the importance of education, networking, collaboration. So this is a great opportunity to do it, but that's not all. There's another really great opportunity to do it coming up at the end of April 27th and 28th. I'm going to be shocked if anybody on this webinar is surprised by this, but the VRNation annual conference is happening. There's a great schedule of content. I personally am incredibly jealous to not be attending this event myself, but my team is going to be there. And I can tell you guys, if you haven't been to one of these events, not only are they educational, not only will you leave learning something, you will leave with connections that you likewise, you unlikely would have made in other ways. And that those connections are so valuable. So if you aren't already registered, Breezeway 2025 is going to get you 10% off that registration. There is a link here. I'm sure that Heidi will add that in, but it would be great to see you there, and you'll be able to see my colleague Justin Ford, who, if you know him, you love him. He is our safety expert, and also my colleague Madison, who is a local of Austin, and she can probably give you some good tips if you're going to be sticking around after the show. So that is all I have. Thank you for having me, Tara. I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. That was great information. Really appreciate it. And I can't wait for your event next week too, for Elevate, to learn a little bit more. I've been using Breezeway for 5 years, and there was things I didn't know. So I need to brush up too, and show my owners that, yeah, we're in the houses all the time, constantly doing stuff. And we don't invoice for every little thing that goes on in the house. So it's nice to show them that we are taking care of things, even though their owner statements don't reflect that. So one thing I always remind my staff also is that every guest is a potential owner.
Yeah.
And we remind all of our housekeepers and all of our property managers that, 8 out of 10 times an owner comes to me to talk to me about property management is they've stayed with us. They liked the experience. They stayed with, a couple of the property managers in the area, and they're like, oh my gosh, your communication, your texting, your follow-up, how you, respond to things was top notch, and we're, super interested in, moving forward with you. So that's one thing I always remind people too, is every guest is a potential owner. Never forget that.
Absolutely. And I think we talk a lot about like this idea of, focusing on the guests. And I think that makes a lot of sense. But if you had faulted at any of those things, that homeowner would have been going somewhere else. Right. And so I think it's about like making sure that we understand the impact and like that equal piece. And gosh, I have never been a property manager, but I've been around the block enough to know how hard that work that you guys do is. And it is tough. And there will be periods with your business where you focus more on guests and then more on owners, and, it sort of fluctuates back and forth. But I love that idea, Tara, of every guest is a potential owner. That's amazing.
Yeah, it really helps. And sometimes I have to remind myself when I'm having a bad day and a guest is ultra demanding, or it's just, coming off as maybe I'm not as pleasant as I should be, as, oh my gosh, okay, is this is this someone who's in town meeting with a realtor shopping for their next house, and I need to behave. Yeah, so let's go to the audience for questions. I think there's some in the chat. Corinne, do you want to kick that off and maybe answer a few questions?
Yeah. Let's see. Okay. So a destination Facebook group. I mean, I live in Cleveland, Ohio. There is not a destination Facebook group here. However, there are, you have your general, you'll have your general, like, city pages and like market pages, I guess. But my understanding is that, that there's been a lot of success in being able to get in there and to just share things that you love about the community and that you are excited to help promote, right? And so these are either for people coming to visit. I know I'm thinking about in the Panhandle of Florida. I know there's a lot of like, visit this place. I'm a member of one. I go to the Caribbean to the Virgin Islands a lot, and there's like St. John Travel, right? St. John Villas and Condos, and it is happening every single day that somebody is like, I'm looking for this property, I'm looking for that property, right? And you don't want to come in there and sell yourself every time, but if you could come in and show a beautiful sunset or a beautiful like experience type picture in that destination, that is a captive audience of people who are thinking about coming there, who regularly come there and taking a page out of Tara's book, right? Those guests may potentially buy property there, right? And so then when they're thinking about that, they're thinking about, well, gosh, Tara and her company always had really great information. Let me see what they could do for that. So some of it's not going to be a destination Facebook group specific for people who are looking to buy homes or are looking to find a property manager. So I should probably clarify that, but it's more about being active in those destination Facebook groups so that people know who your business is. Not only will it be helpful from like a potential guest piece of it, but like Sarah said, there are owners who are in there. And even if they're not actively looking today for a new property management company, if you knock their socks off and you're kind and polite and professional, which we know we all would be, then you have the opportunity to get in front of them. And so you're top of mind when they start to think about that.
I've also found owners in those groups too, and I didn't know I had clients in groups. So I'm always, when you respond and they see that you're active in the group too. So sometimes when the group is 10 or 20,000 people or it's larger, you will have clients and potential clients in the group. I also belong to a few local in my area because I'm near a ski resort and all of our properties are in HOAs, in gated communities. I belong to neighborhood apps where I can give advice or local information, and it shows that I'm a local business owner in the area. We belong to short-term rental hosts for a certain HOA where there's a whole bunch of us in there and we all collaborate and share information and help each other out. And that just shows, community collaboration, helping other homeowners, and people see that, and they see how active you are in the community, whether it's a teeny tiny HOA or there's several thousand people in your neighborhood app for your community. There's lots of ways that you can join and just show up and give little nuggets of positive information, and it all helps.
It's not immediate, right? This isn't like going to be your ticket. If you're looking for like fast ways to grow your homeowner base and get in front of new homeowners, there are a lot of great companies out there that can help facilitate that. But this is that sort of organic growth, right? It's like Tara said, it's responding. It's about putting yourself out there as an expert in the place that you live, work, and in some cases, I guess I was going to say reside, but that's the same as live. But a place that's really important to you, right? And so it's not super salesy. It's not about like, hey, look at us, but it's just, hey, I'm doing the right thing, and people are going to notice.
And it's definitely a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
It takes time, but I've been in some Facebook groups for 10 years, and little here, little there, it pays off.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions?
I'm looking up here. I know there was a question about, and there's been a lot of people chiming in here about, would anybody be willing to share promotional material for owner acquisition? I'm not your girl there, Alex, but it looks like there's a lot of other people within the comments who have mentioned being open to doing that. So we've got that. That's it. I don't know that there's anything else. I think the one thing I would say, as we wait to see if there's any other questions around like how the operational work that you do attributes to your homeowner experience is like many things in life, right? Doing it right doesn't it continues to keep people happy, but doing it wrong can have astronomical impact. And so I think about, it's sort of weird that Breezeway is talking about owner communications and owner, maintaining and retaining owners. But I think that so much of the work that our clients do on a daily basis through their operations has impacted what they're doing. And I think, when you're able to go into a conversation with someone and say, hey, here's our checklist. Did any of the other companies share their checklist with you of what they do every time they're in your property? That's something that can differentiate you. And so I think like, it's just that idea of, if you're doing it all really well, that's great. But the minute that something goes wrong, that's when it has that impact. So, I think that's a big one. And we've sort of organically grown our platform because of how much of the business operations touches. And I think it's just natural that we would start to look at how can we help take all the work that people are doing and get it in front of your homeowners to showcase the operational efforts that are happening.
That's awesome. And Elizabeth is asking us about annual owner surveys. That's a good one. I've been a property manager for 16 years in the short-term rental space, and I have never sent out an annual owner survey. So that's a great idea. I think it would be impactful and give you a lot of feedback. And it's something that is probably should be implemented, and I should probably do it with my business too. I'd learn a little bit from my owners on what they want to. So great idea. Great idea.
I think too, as with anything, I think owner surveys are going to be great. I would say I'm stealing this from clients who have shared these stories with me, but in your peak seasons, whether you're a summer market or a winter market, some managers have started offering open office hours where they just block off an hour or two and they welcome any of their owners who are in town that day or week to actually come in and talk with them and meet some of the team. And again, it's creating that personal connection, which I think is so important. I know people have done that. I mentioned when you are doing any newsletters or things, sharing industry trends are really important, sharing things that are happening locally. But I think highlighting homeowners and homes that are renting really well, that have the desired ADR and booking occupancy and all of that stuff, letting people know sort of what they're up against, because in the real world, right, everybody's house is everybody's home is their favorite, right? And why wouldn't someone want to stay here? But sharing that in a positive way, and also sharing information about your team, recognizing your team is really can really go a long way. So I don't know a ton about owner surveys. I do know a couple of companies who have and are doing those. But I think those newsletters or office hours, things like that can be really powerful.
Absolutely. I am a homeowner and have a short-term rental property on the East Coast. And so I hire another company. So I, for the first time, get a taste of my own medicine. And I get to see what it's like being an owner going, what are you spending money on? What's this going? What's happening in my house? But when the first time I saw my house featured in a magazine or on, they actually flew a drone through my house and out the French doors over the pool in the backyard. And I saw this big elaborate video on socials or Instagram or whatever it was. And they didn't tell me they did it. I had no idea. It was just, I was scrolling one day and my kids actually sent it to me because they're on the internet more than I am. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. That's so cool. I've never done that before. So seeing it as a homeowner going, they featured my property, didn't even tell me about it, did this cool video, and I was thrilled. And that made my day. So it was nice seeing it from another perspective, because I had never done that before. I just bought a short-term rental on the East Coast and hired my first property manager ever. And so
wow.
It was cool. It was cool.
Did you end up, I'm curious, did you contact them after you saw it and be like, this is so cool, thank you?
I texted my property manager and said, wow, thank you.
How great to get a positive, happy message versus somebody who's frustrated about something. You probably made their day.
For sure, for sure. So we started adding more properties to ours and little feature Fridays and stuff like that, because the owners do watch and they do follow you and they do see it and they want to be recognized and they want to say, that's my house. And then they send it to their friends. So it's just
and those homeowners might know other people who are potential homeowners or who are already homeowners. So that's
it's an inexpensive way to, give them the warm and fuzzies.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah.
Now you need to send me that post because I want to check it out. That sounds so cool.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. If we don't have any other questions, that might wrap us up.
I love it. This was so fun. I'm glad to hear that you learned something on here that you didn't know. I hope that everybody listening was able to get a nugget or two that they can implement in their business. So
yeah.
thank you for having me.
So I will tell you guys just once again what Corinne said. Our VRNation Industry Conference is coming up next month, April 27th and 28th in Austin. Austin's one of my favorite cities. VRNation hosts a wonderful conference where everybody gets together. We learn so much. There's so many great classes. Our keynote speaker, Steve Sims, is incredible. He created Bluefish, the Amex Black Card concierge service, the creme de la creme of concierge. So I have met this wonderful man. He is a great speaker, super motivational. Can't wait to hear him on stage. I actually met Brian Galkey and had a meeting with him yesterday. So much good information, really friendly guy. It's going to be a great conference. I can't wait to see people. If there's any questions, please reach out to me personally. Happy to give any feedback. I started my company in 2008 with one property and keep growing it till today. So happy to give anybody information and share with you guys.
Now you're really making me want to go. Now you're really making me want to go to the conference.
I think we met at the Women's Summit. You and I, like the very first Women's Summit eons ago.
Yeah, that sounds right. And then in Seaside.
Yeah.
We talked a lot at Seaside. I feel like that's where we like really made our like connection on fashion.
We bonded over shoes.
Yeah. And you know what? I bought those shoes you recommended too. So.
I have 3 pairs.
I love it.
Oh, Elizabeth, you want to know what the Women's Summit is? It is a conference that happens every other year.
Yes.
And the next Women's Summit is in
August 19th to 21st.
Charlotte?
Charleston, South Carolina.
Charleston.
Yes.
In Charleston. And you can just Google the VR Women's Summit. I don't know the exact. There you go.
And it's in the chat.
Someone's quicker than me.
Back there.
And this is a phenomenal conference. There's only a couple a year I go to, and the Women's Summit is one of them that I have never missed a single one. So they're awesome.
It is. It's definitely it's I say that about your guys' past conferences that I was at before it was VRNation. And I think it's a special conference, right? I think Amy Hinote, who puts on the Women's Summit, does a great job. It's different than others. There's not like a big expo area, but it's a really incredible place. And the Francis Marion Hotel, which is where that conference is at too, is I've been there for another one of her shows. It's a really cool spot right downtown. So I don't know though. I'm going to that one, but I'm still thinking about Austin because
you should. We'll go down.
It's on the list. So
all right. Well, thank you. Thank you everyone for joining. And please, you can go to vrnation.com if there's anything you need or want to register for the conference. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Bye, guys. Thanks for your time.
Bye.